So I'm sharing today from what I learned in a class called Living Deeply. It was about loving the beloved. And NilI Weissman is the teacher or the facilitator. And we talked about mana, teaching us. We learned many things from the Torah. So my pasuk that year, which was, then Moses said to Aaron, come to the altar and sacrifice your sin offering and your burnt offering and make expiation for yourself and for the people, and sacrifice the people's offering and make expiation for them as God has commanded. So it's all about being a leader, a priest, a priestess, sacrifice, offerings, realignment, and that we're part of a web of being interconnected for healing and purification of what's rotten, like a nerve. May we release the thorns we hold on to so that we may be free of suffering by our own hand. And safeguarding is all about focusing on those who need it. Be warriors of justice. Everyone's worthy of protection. And remembering I'll be provided for even if it takes longer, because from each his or her ability and to each his or her need was the mana. Not more than what we need, not less, and not storing extra like hoarding, but rather a self-monitoring, not putting the tabernacle, the priest, responsible for what God cares about most. Is all about sustainability and economic justice, where each one individually also is accountable. And when we kill evil, anything toxic, harsh, it's like banishing the bad like it's an addiction. We have the right to heal and change and learn. You know, trees are not people and didn't have the power to surrender. We think about root and branch. If they don't surrender, it's like child sacrifice, sexual rights. There was a lot of immorality that happened, or really like, hopeless, unredeemable, unforgivable, really vilified. Kind of, we would say it's God's greatest desire for us to really be in joy, and these things don't bring joy, those states of being. And when we look at the sand, we recognize that we're all grains of sand. Everything is just a part. That's a perspective. When I read my pasuk, which was Leviticus 9:7, and me being all roles in it, each one in the group had a different pasuk and taught different things, and I learned from them. So, for example, somebody taught me about Moshe. Never got to go into Israel after guiding the Jews because he rebelled at the water. Apparently, he was punished for hitting the rock, because the previous time he hit the rock, he was commanded. This time he didn't hit the rock, but this time he did hit the rock. He was just supposed to talk to it. It's coming to the inner god or goddess instead of escaping and running back to ourselves. And when we look at the Choshen Mishpat, which is like this apron, the shouldered apron, like a garment, if they didn't wear it, they would die. Like the high priest, when they were doing incense as a sacrifice, the eternal flame that Aaron, the high priest, Moshe's brother, kept, it was part of the tabernacle, the Mishkan. And it's all about being present, less on the shoulders, less weight to bring, able to be in interconnectedness. Instead of judging, it's like being present with all the parts. When we look at what killing means, to be struck or to strike, or the avenger, we have to remember this happens over lifetimes, being every role, the darkness and the brightness, and God uses messengers to come shake something in us and kill it so that something fuller can come take its place in the whole, and our heart is always able to stay open, tender, even we might say broken, as we, someone called himself shamanic, like the larger sort of healing, the holder of opposites, that we never have to let the light inflate us, because the light is right behind us. So we're thinking it's us, but it's like we make a shadow when we get too big, full of ourselves. The light can't shine through us. And we don't have to be afraid of the shadow, because the light made it. Like the light shining on an object made the shadow. So when we hold space for both the ending and the beginning, it neutralizes. It's not so bad. And when we think about Shabbos and holding space, Shabbos is more space-time for holiness. The duality shows us what's sacred, because we have Shabbos and not Shabbos. And the prayer is maybe we feel God holding us in Shabbos. And when we hold space, it's things like we say, Dibarti, I've spoken, or Shamati, I've heard. We speak into the space. We hear from the space, and we can focus on our blessings, what we have. For example, I heard today someone say they were complaining about the sink being clogged, and I realized my sink is clogged. This is a message for me. But they said they have a sink in their house. They have a house, right? So we can choose to appreciate and offer love even to the suffering in this way. And in our relationship with God, we can look at how are we being changed by the fire of initiation and transformation. The burning bush is a cleansing, not a destroying. And the source of this is God. We can never forget. And how we're coming deeper into ourselves. I think about things like and this is all I wrote years ago, but it still applies. Like, I'm ashamed, embarrassed to ask, but can you listen? Or wanting to stay in the water out of fear of the fire. or God, yes, please burn away my fears. And we can ask ourselves, where's my relationship with God right now? And then what's my next step? So I give myself to love. I no longer recognize myself, yet I'm most fully me. I enter the sacred fire. I'm now a beloved. That was a quote from NilI, who runs the workshop. And she asked, what's your next verse? I said, I choose to be a dwelling place. It's like a step into the darkness with the earth rushing up to meet me. I can be used. Lover is beloved. I'll stop here and I'll wish you well. And I look forward to sharing more in the future.